Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Excuse me. We are now headed into our next segment, and I wanted to talk about the release of the 2024 schedule, where we have the full slate of games for the upcoming season. This was something that was leaked a little bit ahead of time. We now know, though, that the Ravens are going to be headed to Kansas City to face the Chiefs in the first game of the NFL season. That's going to kick off the first Thursday of the year. A rematch of the AFC Championship game. And then what's really interesting is we do have that Brazil game that was talked about for a bit. That is going to be taking place on that Friday between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. And it is going to be exclusively streamed on Peacock. So a few thoughts about that game. One, should be a really fun game for the most part anyways. The fact that it's going to be the first game ever in Brazil. And the third thing is that this is the first example we're going to see for the 2024 season in terms of the exclusive streaming platform games, where we have seen Amazon Prime take over as the Thursday Night Football provider, which is going to be the case once again. We're going to be diving into that shortly, but it seems like the NFL was a little bit more willing to, I don't know if there was something behind the scenes in terms of Amazon Prime was willing to pay a little bit more money, but it seems like the quality of games there might actually be a little bit better than what we've seen in recent years. But on NFL.com, they also announced that Amazon Prime Video is going to be streaming a wild card game as well. We saw a similar situation last year where Peacock did so for the game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins in the wild card round. I don't believe that Peacock is getting another playoff game, at least from what I have seen. Let me know if I'm wrong on that matter. Let me know in the comment section, but it seems like Peacock's one game is going to be this Brazil matchup in week 1, but we also have 2 games that are going to be aired on Netflix on Christmas Day. The Chiefs are going to be playing the Steelers, and the Ravens are going to be playing the Texans. So some interesting matchups there. Historic franchises in the Chiefs and the Steelers. Another rematch from the playoffs last year in the divisional round between the Ravens and Texans. But I think that with all of these mutually, exclusive streaming service games, it is kind of unfortunate because it's not ideal for the casual viewer. But at the same time, the numbers last year for Peacock on that playoff game were extremely high, and I do think that it's just something we're going to have to get used to. It's kind of the future of streaming for a lot of these sports. And again, let me know how you feel about it in the comment section, but I don't think that anything is going to change on this front. It seems like from a business perspective, the NFL knows that they can sell off, again, especially with all of the success that the Peacock game had last year. The NFL knows that they can probably continue to drive up the price a little bit on the bidding war for these types of games, and it does make sense, I think, for these streaming platforms as well to carry their end of the bargain because of the fact that they are getting, incredible viewership numbers on these individual games, and if they can sort of hook additional people in for the sake of, keeping their membership, then I understand from the business perspective of both the NFL and these streaming services. We can acknowledge that it does sort of hurt the casual viewer, but fortunately, when has the common person ever really been, the X factor in these types of business deals from big corporations? So just sort of my 2 cents on that. But I wanted to round out the rest of week 1. We have like I mentioned, the primetime matchups, it seems like this year. Now, injuries always play a role in sort of derailing some of these, but I was really thrilled with some of the primetime matchups we got this year. we have the Rams and the Lions facing off on the first Sunday Night Football game of the year. Another playoff rematch, as we saw when the postseason came around last year. Plenty of storylines between these two teams in terms of making the deal for Goff and Stafford, all of the different relationships that are baked into it. It's Stafford going back into Detroit, where there was a little bit of love lost the last time around. I think that at the end of the day, when Stafford, I believe he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Let me know if you disagree with that idea. But I think he's going to be remembered for being in a Lions jersey. I think that Lions fans do still have a lot of respect for him, but right now things are just going to be a little bit contentious, and they are going to want to win every single one of these matchups at a very high intensity level, to say the least. But also in week 1, we have the Jets debuting on Monday Night Football once again with a matchup against the 49ers. Now, if you remember last year, of course, the Jets did play their first game on Monday Night Football, which is where Aaron Rodgers made his very brief Jets debut before suffering the season-ending injury. Now, on the bright side, this game isn't going to be taking place at MetLife, so maybe we get a little bit of a better field for Aaron Rodgers to make his smooth transition into the, Jets culture and everything. But, thought it was interesting that they would decide to go in that direction once again, putting the Jets on the Monday night primetime. But, I wanted to touch a little bit on the strength of schedules, the most difficult ones. It is not a huge surprise that the AFC North sort of dominates the very top of this list, with the Browns, Ravens, and Steelers being the top 3 most difficult schedules for 2024. Now, this strength of schedule is calculated based off of last season's results and the win percentages combined for the teams that they're going to be facing. So, not a perfect stat, but just sort of generally speaking here, all of these teams are at the top because they have to play one another. And the AFC North is, in my eyes, the best division in the league. Let me know if you have any other thoughts on that. But somehow the Bengals avoided the same level of difficulty with their strength of schedule. Now, again, can be a little bit subjective, this stat. For example, the Bengals were last in the division last year, which is why they do have the easiest schedule out of the group. But, their wins are probably their record when you look at other teams that are going to have to play them. The Bengals are going to be a much better team this season as long as they have a healthy Joe Burrow. So, it does sort of show the flaws in the system that is currently calculating this. But rest of the top 10, we have the Packers at 4, and then the Texans, Giants, Bills, Patriots, Jaguars, and Raiders at number 10. Gotta say, as a Patriots fan here, pretty sad about the Patriots having the 8th hardest schedule. Now, I just don't know what the team did to deserve this. They also don't have a bye week until week 14, so definitely could be very rough stuff for the Patriots going here. When we last talked about the over-unders, I believe the Patriots were at 4.5 wins for the season, and I did feel like they could win one more game. Or did they win 3 or 4 last year? I'm kind of blanking off the top of my head, but I thought the Patriots could be a potential over team, but they won 4 games. But when I looked earlier on BetMGM, they are actually sitting at 5.5, so don't feel quite as good about that prediction now. But 4.5, 5 is probably going to be around where they do end up this season. But on the flip side of the conversation surrounding the NFC or the AFC North being at the top of the most difficult strength of schedule because they have to play one another, we saw the NFC South holding 4 out of the 5 easiest schedules for 2024. Goes Saints, Falcons, Panthers, The Bears are in there, and then the Buccaneers in terms of the 5 easiest. So not all too surprising there. Part of what's leading a lot of people to really buy into the Falcons, who can definitely be a good team, but I don't see them as a true Super Bowl contender. And that's going to be what we're sort of diving into in the next segment, is putting these teams into tiers. But sort of just to quickly wrap up here, I want to talk a little bit about some of the primetime matchups. Like I alluded to earlier, the Thursday night slate feels like is much better than it has been in the past. We got some high quality divisional matchups, hopefully, between the Bills and Dolphins, the Niners and the Seahawks, the Bengals and the Ravens, Packers, Lions, and the Rams and the 49ers. We also do have a Sean Payton return to New Orleans with his Broncos team. And then week 17, we're going to have a very interesting matchup. I believe it is the Bears versus the Seahawks. And specifically, seeing Caleb Williams on this big stage late in the year with the Bears potentially making a push for the postseason, definitely going to be something that I am interested in. We're also going to see him on Sunday Night Football in week 2 when he faces off against CJ Stroud and the Texans. I think that should be another really good game as well. But let me know which games you guys are most looking forward to. We're going to be taking our final break here, and when we come back on the other side, I broke each of the NFL teams down into tiers. So we are going to be giving a little bit of a rankings to end off the show here. But stick with us after this quick break, and we will be right back.